Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Love seeing those baby faces on the screen as well. Always helps us smile in the morning. Just want to say thank you for your willingness to come back together today amid your likely very busy schedules so that we can kind of continue to get our ducks in a row and be ready for some important voting sessions at our quarterly meeting. So with that, we're going to jump right in and continue our work on the bylaw draft review, and that's going to get us going on this. In order for everyone to have a clear view of where we're at in this current moment with the bylaws, Annette amazingly so put together two documents, one that really shows the track changes and one that is clean and up to date as of today. So after all of our voting and decisions at our last meeting, Annette shared those via email prior to this meeting. So that's all I have. And Annette, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And credit where credit's due. Jill has been just an incredible resource on sort of trying to think our way through these and get things together. So gonna have Jill actually walk through some of the changes, but just to kind of frame it out for folks, we're at a stage now where we've had lots of detailed recommendations, and this is the point where it's like we're asking for your agreement around the concepts. If there's something that we didn't get right conceptually, that's something to say, but overall it's like it's the difference between, yes, this is, I guess what I'm just trying to say is that it's time to move these forward as we can, and so that what we're looking for is not so much wordsmithing as it is being sure the content is right. And appreciate folks looking at things, and that Gordon has caught a couple of formatting errors that we took care of. They didn't change meaning at all, but thank you, Gordon, for that. So I will pass to you, Jill, to kind of give the overview of the changes we made between the last meeting and this one.
Just really quickly, I forgot to mention for you all, we do have quorum right now for today's meeting. So just wanted to let you all know. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jill, for letting me interrupt.
Okay, the two documents, the two PDFs that you received, show the changes from the bylaws that are currently posted to the Alliance website that we've been operating under, and the final changes that were all decided on. Some earlier versions of what you have received and have maybe seen included all of the changes between start to finish, which got very confusing as far as version control. Because, for example, the task force defined quorum in one way, and then DOJ said, we can't define quorum in that way. We have to define it as 50% plus one. And so it looked like, so we had to change changes that had been made. And so it became very colorful and very confusing. So the one we're looking at today has the changes that you see are the final changes, not the journey to get to the final changes. And that felt important just for clarity, and that's what we'll send to the full Alliance as well for review. Yeah, Jen, can you pull up the clean version of so without track changes? If we want to see how we got there to the final wording, we can go and pull the track changes up, but let's just look at the pretty bylaws, if bylaws can be pretty. While she's doing that, here are the things that we changed between last meeting and this meeting. One, we went through a sweep and changed the words co-chair to vice chair in regards to the full Alliance committee. We added the language that was suggested around making clear the succession of vice chair to chair and what happens if either of those positions vacates early or is removed. We took out one statement that said that OHA's director had to appoint executive members. So during this discussion, we said that was incorrect. And we did not go through and make a sweep of changing all of the words director to say OHA's director and all of the words coordinator to say OHA coordinator. because it's designated with parentheses early in the document. And so it felt like preference instead of content. It didn't change the meaning of it at all. And so we're looking for just kind of consensus on that decision. And if we do want it to, every time it says director or coordinator, to say OHA director and OHA coordinator, Jen has prepped out a version of that though, so we can still vote and move on today if that's the preference. We thought it wasn't necessary. So that's the first question on the table, is that, is it okay that every time it says, Jen, if you scroll down, down. Yeah, here. So that second paragraph, it says members will be appointed by the director of OHA, and then in parentheses, director. The rest of the document just has the capitalized word director instead of director of OHA or OHA's director.
Are these items that you'll need official votes on, Jill?
I don't think so. I think if we have consensus, then we can vote on the bylaws as a whole.
Perfect.
If there is disagreement, I think we should vote.
The only thing I'd suggest, Jill, is that the first, it looks like the term director appears first earlier in the document, so you would do it there and then just use the in the parentheses director for the rest of it. That's just style. Again, it's a stylistic change. It's not a functional change.
The very
Good-
first time
good-
it's mentioned,
Good
which
catch,
is
Justin, though. Good catch.
So Jen will make that change. The Alliance may recommend members for appointment by the director of OHA, in parentheses, director, and then the rest of the document will just say director. Are there any other concerns with that piece of it?
No.
Gordon caught 2 grammar errors, an A to a the and an extra ed at the end of a word that didn't need it. So we made those changes as well. But other than that, I think we are interested to know how you want to move forward. Did everyone feel like they read it and have any questions so that we could vote, or do you want to go through the document page by page to together?
Let's give, since we have a few people off screen and some of us on screen, maybe if you can give Jill a thumbs up or unmute and say if there's something that you would want to do differently, that would probably be helpful.
And I'll pull up the voting members really quick, so that way folks who, we like everybody's thumbs, that sounds weird, but these specific people on this list are the ones that we're looking for. Do you see the thumb people? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So to clarify, thumbs up if we are okay with the entirety of the changes that were submitted via the email that was sent.
Yep, and if you're ready to vote, and then if you are ready to vote, somebody would need to make a motion to adopt these bylaws with the changes that we noted today.
Let's wait to see if anybody wants to do that, and just make sure that everyone has an opportunity to either take a moment to look at it, give a thumbs up, or unmute and say if there's anything that you would like to discuss. Thank you for your feedback, Erin. We love getting the feedback, even if you're not able to vote. So really appreciate that you're taking the time to give input. I see a lot of concentration happening. Would it be helpful if you all had a couple minutes to keep looking through it? Head nod. Yep. Okay. I see some head nods. Perfect. We'll go ahead and do that then.
Jill, I'm assuming all those ORSs have been double checked.
By DOJ, in fact.
Then
Not a
if there's
surprise,
something
not a
wrong,
surprise.
then-
Even better. That way we don't have any
Any, anytime I
concerns.
see ORS, the quick scan is always just if there's an extra digit in it somewhere. Like you catch those, then you know there's something wrong.
Y'all didn't notice, Joe put a request in the chat. I think this is great. When you're ready, just so we're not assuming and we're all sitting here, if you're ready for a potential motion to vote, just please put in the chat that you're done with review or just say ready.
Ready
Wanna
and move that we adopt this as is.
I had a
Okay,
question.
Isn't it recommend for adoption? Because it's yeah, okay.
Let's hold on a moment to put in an actual can't think a motion just because it sounds like not everyone was ready yet and we have some questions. Karen, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering, are we voting on, like, are we voting on the entirety of the edits or are we, I'm just wondering, because I actually wanted to discuss this, the subcommittees. So are we voting on that right now or just like other things?
Everything.
That's,
Everything in the document, and that's a really great point because in our last meeting, we did have some discussion around subcommittees that was still open. So if you're thinking that it would be helpful to cover that prior to us completing this. Okay, perfect. Thank you for voicing that, Karen. Jen, there's some updated information at the bottom of the agenda, just kind of where we were at with that. Ultimately, there was some question. Jill, you have a question. Is your question about the bylaws subcommittee section? I think that's for you, Karen.
Yeah, or Karen, is your question about which subcommittees the executive wants to put forward?
Yeah, the list of the ones that are being elevated and then the two that are still under discussion.
Yep, so though that is separate from the bylaws.
Perfect.
Bylaws don't list which subcommittees need to be.
Okay, then I don't need to have a discussion.
And we do have that on the agenda, Karen. So thank you for bringing that to light. Absolutely have it there. Remember our conversation that we left off with. So thank you for not letting us forget. Appreciate it. So we have lots of readies. Let's see. I don't know if anyone's checking for our voting members in the ready list for us.
Yeah, and it looks like, so the motion, well, we have, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, we have 5 people who said that they're ready, and we would need a minimum of the 7 for now.
Okay.
Okay, there we
I
go.
think
Yep,
we're
we have
good.
everybody. Yep.
All right. So would someone like to make a motion that we can go ahead and move forward with the current display of bylaws as provided to all of us for this meeting, and those bylaws would be what we would take to is this correct, Jill? Please help me make sure I'm correct. This is the copy of bylaws that we'll be taking to our quarterly meeting as well for vote.
right. So it's the motion would be language around recommend the bylaws be forwarded to the full alliance for a vote.
Perfect. Thank you, Annette.
Gordon Clay, so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, John Seeley.
Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and do an official vote, yay or nay, in the chat, pretty. Yes, in the chat, pretty please. Okay, looks like we have approval to move forward.
Oh my gosh.
Woo woo. Where's the celebration for that one? Thank you again for every single soul
Jill,
that
did
put all
it
of the
actually
hard
knock
work.
you off the chair?
Yes, that was a
Thank you.
dramatic feint. I was gonna calculate how many hours collectively have been spent on this.
Don't do that, Jill.
Don't do that. Just move on. Yeah, you're right.
To celebrate the moment. And yes, it is really important to note, Jill, you and everyone else in this space or who's not able to sit here today that put a lot of hard work and even during potential summer vacation time. So thank you so much. That's amazing and awesome and fabulous. There, we added some extra words for that. With that, we will actually move forward to our next agenda moment. So do you want to cover again? I think it looks like Annette, you still had the nomination update on here. Did you want to review those again for this meeting? You're muted.
I wanted to just say to people that we have not received, well, the current nominees that we have are for Vice Chair Don Erickson, person with lived experience, Sisha Green Mitchell, and I think she's just here today. We have one young adult representative, which is Erin Townsend. And there is an at-large, and Craig Leitz in the at-large member place. We have not received other nominations. I had said in the email that I sent out to everybody that nominations would remain open till September 20th. Jill pointed out to me that in the bylaws, it says that the executive has to review nominees before they get forwarded to the full alliance. And so the proposal is that I send a note out to people explaining that we're going to need to close the nominations today. The other alternative is we could say that we're leaving the nominations open, and if there's any contested positions that we'd have to slow the process down for those.
And
I
that's
would
like,
just think, like, I know one person who's potentially considering vice chair nomination. So I think given the timeline that we initially provided, understanding that adjustment may need to occur, maybe letting everyone know and giving them a little bit more time than today, perhaps until tomorrow, to make a decision around that.
Annette, will
Along
you,
with anyone else who may be considering positions. Sorry, Galli, go ahead.
Annette, will you walk us through again? So you're saying you originally said the 20th in an
I
email.
sent an
Right.
email.
So we need the executive subcommittee needs to forward those recommendations on. So
Yeah.
the executive subcommittee needs to see those names
Yes.
first. So walk me through the timeline of when does the executive subcommittee meet next?
Yeah, so our next scheduled meeting is the first Monday in October.
The 7th of October then?
Yeah,
So options could include one, if there are any nominations that result in a contested vote between now and September 20, that we hold those to the winter quarterly meeting, so that it gives the executive time to review. Second option could be that we call a 15-minute executive special session before the quarterly meeting to vet and vote in new executive
that's a
members.
good idea.
Those two options seem reasonable to me.
Well, I would definitely prefer the latter because I think we need the chair, and I think we need the positions to start moving forward. So I'd hate to wait another 3 months.
Charlotte, do you see a motion in the chat from Karen?
I did not. Thank you for that. So Karen, it looks like you have a motion to move for a 15-minute vote before the quarterly meeting.
If you want to have it before the quarterly meeting, like we could, I could make the move for like to do it in the next like 30 days, or I mean, when is the quarterly meeting? That's soon.
Yeah, the quarterly meeting is actually coming up on remind me if I'm wrong, the 27th of
Yeah,
September.
It's in 2 weeks.
Okay,
Yeah. I mean, one potential possibility, I don't know how much room this gives, is are we able to actually do it earlier that morning prior to
That,
the
I think
actual
that was the
quarterly meeting?
proposal. Yeah,
Okay, just I was making sure that I was seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you want to, would you still like to go ahead and move for that motion, Karen? Okay.
yes, I would.
So what I hear is the motion on the table is to move for a 15-minute vote that will take place before our quarterly meeting starts on September 17th. This is going to be an opportunity for people to be in person and virtual, and we would need quorum. So
September 17th.
September
no,
27th.
27th.
Thank you.
Okay.
17 is my lucky
second.
number. It must be stuck in my head. You
Sorry,
second. I heard that. Who did the
Second.
second come from? Justin?
Justin.
The
second.
27th before the quarterly starts is what people are suggesting that we, okay.
We do at 9 a.m.
Because
So
we
the
start at
meeting starts at
9:30.
9:30. Yeah.
So we'll do that at 9 a.m. We have a second, and let's go ahead and vote in the chat, please.
It passes. So with that passing, if folks could that are in the room who are voting members could maybe let myself or Annette know who might be there in person versus online, so that way we just kind of know, since we need that quorum, who we're waiting for. That could be most helpful. Thank you all. And then I'll make sure to save what people say, where people say that they'll be, so that way we can know for the day of.
Where's the in-person again?
Bend.
It's in Bend.
Bend.
Come on, Justin, we want you there.
Yeah.
I know
I
you
would
all
love
are
to make
not
the
going to make
trip.
us just, y'all are not going to have us sitting up at that front room all by ourselves.
Yeah. I think actually we probably are going to have a lot of people online for this meeting though. So we'll
Yeah.
really we'll do a lot of behind the scenes work to try and make the hybrid as smooth as possible.
Yes. Yeah, I want to thank Gally for putting that request out there. It was difficult for some members to hear last year, and really kind of thinking ahead and advocating to make sure that everyone has the ability to attend and be able to hear and participate. So thank you, Gally, for that. All right, well, we are just on top of things. Look at that. You all might get some extra time back in your lives today.
Don't say
So-
it, Charlotte. Charlotte, you said it. Now it won't happen.
And I disagree. What we put out into the universe, we can create. Just saying. All right. So with that, who wants to cover the recommendation to OHA around Mary Ann? Yeah. Do you want to do that, Annette?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Just one comment on the nominations. I think it's extraordinary and exciting that we've got such wonderful nominees for these positions, and a number of whom are in the room and have hung in through not being officially appointed, and just really the dedication of this group to doing the work. And I know we're going to be able to shift our focus more broadly to suicide prevention again soon, and not all these administrative details, but just so thank you. For those of you who have continued to serve with all the glory of being in one of these positions, and for those of you who are offering to serve in the future. As we have been going through membership and really trying to take care of every administrative detail, one thing that came up is that Mary Ann Mueller, we had approved for membership years ago, and somehow there was an administrative error, and I could have been on our part. She didn't get through. And so Mary Ann has been a very active member of the Alliance, and is willing to serve in some leadership roles around. She's been very active with our equity committee, and is I don't know if folks know Marianne. Marianne works with the Oregon Healing Collective. She does a huge amount of postvention work with students across the state. So I think brings just the kinds of perspectives that we want to the table. And so what I'm hoping for is that we can get a motion to forward her membership nomination to the to be recommended to the director.
For general membership of the coalition?
For general membership of the coalition.
I'd be happy to make a motion for Marianne to be recommended to be a member of the Oregon Alliance. And I'm very sorry, Marianne, that did not happen when it should have.
Yeah, and I'll second that motion. This is John.
Thank you so much. And also thank you for extending that acknowledgement. And yes, so happy to have everyone's expertise. So since we have a motion and a second, if we can all go ahead and vote in the chat, yay or nay, that would be wonderful.
And I'll let the vote finish first.
And the motion passes. Welcome, Marianne.
Officially
The
welcome,
work you're
Marianne.
already doing, but now you can, yeah, you can have that awesome letter, which does feel pretty good to get in the mail.
And not to pop anybody's bubble, but just a reminder that we are making recommendations. So, again, just wanna, Marianne, we'd be happy to have you, but again, it is not up to us to make that decision. We are recommending the Oregon Health Authority, who is then going to be making that determination.
And in this case, the director has pre-approved it pending that vote. So,
Woohoo!
yay.
Yay, congratulations, Marianne.
Okay,
Woohoo!
so you do officially get the letter.
You do.
I knew it. See,
There it
I
is.
was putting it out into the universe and it happened. See, Jill, it works.
All right.
All right. You all are awesome. So I think the next section would be the subcommittees. And I think Jen was going to help us review that.
Yep.
Did we have to
Sure.
vote on if these folks are going to continue, right?
Yeah, Charlotte, this got slipped in
Oh,
last minute if we had time. And so just to say there were a number of current members who had terms coming to the end in December 24. I've reached out to everybody who was in that category, and were 4 people who did not want to continue. And each one of these people who are listed here, 10 people, wanted to continue to serve for another 3 years. And what I will say about every single one of these folks is they are all currently active, working on a committee and engaged with Alliance stuff. And so what Jill had suggested was if we had time today and could and have approval from the group, we could forward these as a group to ask for reappointment. Jill, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I just want to take full responsibility for adding that in. It was after a conversation with Dr. Hathi. She said, are there going to be others? Can we just put them all together? And the other name that I would like to add to this list is Catherine Bennett. She will be the OHA Public Health Division representative. And previously it's been Laura Chisholm, and she doesn't have capacity to, oh, okay, thank you. She doesn't have capacity to attend 3 of 4 meetings, and Catherine does. And so wanted to note that change too as we finish the cleanup.
I'd like to make a motion that the 11 individuals listed on the front of the screen, on the front of our screen, all of their names be put forward for a recommendation for membership.
Second.
so we have a motion. Thank you, Galli, and a second from Justin. Is there any discussion around that? Good old healthy virtual pause. You're like, how long is she going to stare at us? Um, so let's go ahead and vote yay or nay in the chat, please. And the motion passes. We'll move forward with that. Look how effective you all are. This is awesome. Just loving it.
I feel like we've had a lot of practice, team. We've had a lot of practice, so we've got it down. Nice job, everybody. We got this.
You know, I'll mention that I was talking with Marianne and Michelle yesterday, and they had this, they were talking about sort of how does public meeting law work and all that kind of thing. And I had a really good idea that everybody who's chairing a committee, that we put together a little primer for them on how to do the votes, etc. So that's a product I'm gonna put together after we get ourselves through the quarterly.
That's a great idea, folks. And Annette, thank you for being willing to do that. I think even folks who chair meetings regularly still need reminders of how to do this work, and especially when things get a little tricky. So that's awesome.
This Gordon Clay, is that the place that there'd be the recommendation on how to deal with our open meeting where somebody who isn't an Alliance member can talk and make recommendations?
Yes, I think that's exactly the place to do it. Yeah.
Okay.
And Gordon, I can continue in conversation with you a little bit about that. I know that public meetings there've been public meetings in the state that have had really problematic things, people come in to attack them and that kind of thing. I don't anticipate that ever happening with the Alliance, but Gordon and a couple other people have just mentioned to me, let's be thoughtful ahead of time in terms of creating safety and not allowing that. And one thought is really around active engagement of our affiliates, our people who have committed to being part of the ongoing work. And anyhow, we don't need to spend time today on that, but just to say it's a productive discussion, and thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks.
So now we can move to sorry, Charlotte. So now you are correct. We can move to the next thing.
No apologies. I tried to stay on top of it, maybe in a guilty way, too addicted to that dang email, but I'm glad that you brought that forward. Always appreciate that. So now, in reference to what was brought up earlier, and thank you so much again for the reminder, we're going to continue the conversation around making recommendations regarding standing subcommittees. Just for reference, where we left off last time, and I'm going to let Jen continue this conversation, but we left off last time really talking and discussing the evaluation data committee. And some of those questions came up because there was a recommendation that particular committee was open for discussion. And what came out of that conversation at our last meeting was, what are the needs? And then there was an ask that was put out there for Jill to kind of clarify that. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Jen. If you can kind of keep us moving on that would be fabulous. Appreciate it so much.
Yes, Jill, I'm pulling that up my two screens, but still they don't want to cooperate, but I'm trying to pull up that document right now.
I can start with answering that question about where we left off with the data and eval.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So the one question that was on the table was, does OHA have specific needs from the data and evaluation committee? And I think that and the end of the discussion last meeting, there was some energy around, and I actually don't remember if we voted or not voted, but there was some energy around moving the data and evaluation committee to an advisory that can just be kind of called upon as needed. And no voting take place. Okay. And
But there was a motion on the floor.
okay.
There was a motion and a second, but then a discussion started and then it was just too close to
We
ending, so
tabled
we
it.
didn't finish.
Okay, okay. So just naming that specific active requests, I don't necessarily think we have, OHA has a need for monthly data and evaluation convenings. I think it is, we have in contract with PSU and UO and some others around the actual data and evaluation activities. And so I think there will be moments where I would love to be able to call on a group. So having a group established to be called on meets my need.
Just a point of reference, they only have to meet once every 3 months, so if that changes anything, according to our new bylaws.
Karen, I see you're unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, well, I just I appreciate that they only have to meet every 3 months because that makes a big difference for me. But in looking at the other committees that you're considering, like groups that you're considering elevating to standing committees, it just today made me realize that I would not like to see data and evaluation be like subsumed as less meaningful than the other topic areas that are being elevated to committees. And it also made me think about what the purpose of the committee is. So if you think about LGBTQ and equity, that is something that might deserve a committee's, because you need sort of constant sort of vigilance around ensuring that those things are being considered and included in decisions that are made. And I would say that the same is true for evaluation and data. And so I would hate for evaluation and data to suddenly become an afterthought. And I'm thinking that in the role of that committee could potentially switch from a role of right now, it feels like we have to be actively doing work that would probably otherwise be done by the evaluators, because the committee has always had these conversations about, we should do research, we should do all this stuff, which was sort of like, I was always like, well, but there are like contracted evaluators who are doing that work. You know, you wouldn't have a subcommittee to do the work of AOC-MHP because AOC-MHP is doing it. But that said, I think you do need a committee that is continuing to be vigilant to ensure that data is being used to inform decisions, and that anything that is being done related to suicide prevention is being accurately evaluated.
And with that work piece too, as far as we've talked about this on data and eval and other committees too, but with kind of like actively working on things, just thinking about the capacity for members and like what that volunteering could look like, because the people who would be doing the work on the committee, y'all are volunteers doing this in addition to the bajillion other things that you have going on. So kind of like thinking through the capacity and what people would be able, like we want to, but what they would be kind of able to do as far as that work being done in between.
Yeah, well, and I think too that it still remains that if there is like a technical assistance request or advising that a different committee would like to make of data and evaluation, we could still do that as originally discussed at the last meeting, where we said we'll just be available ad hoc. We can still do that, but I don't but I think that the purpose of the committee could be like, the primary purpose is just to to be present and watchful, similar to like what is the purpose of the LGBTQ committee or the schools committee or the workforce committee? Like what are what's the purpose of those groups, other than the fact that some of those committees are doing work that isn't being funded outside of the Alliance?
I've
Thank
got,
you so much for bringing your voice forward, Karen, and just to kind of maybe try to summarize what you're saying and give you an opportunity to change if I'm hearing this correctly or wrong, is that after further consideration, you're really thinking that it would be beneficial to continue this committee, especially understanding that the meeting requirements are only every 3 months, based on keeping the committee actively engaged and really being available and present when additional work is needed. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And then Annette, I saw that you had your hand up.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify that if it's just that if it's the will of the group to continue it as a committee, that there's enthusiastic support for that. I think we were trying to do a little bit of slimming things down just for capacity, but I think like what you're laying out, Karen, makes sense. I'm not sure in terms of process. Might need to go back to the motion that was on the table and see if that needs to get.
That might have been my motion. So if it is,
Yeah.
I rescinded.
It was Karen's motion before. If
Yeah.
you need me to pull it up, I just need like a minute to go grab it. But if you're making a new motion, Karen, I think it would cancel each other
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And we can definitely do that if you want to pull that up, Jen. I just want to make sure I have an opportunity to offer everyone to kind of have input. And it sounds like Gordon, you had something to say as well.
I've got a curiosity. Was it the data evaluation committee that does the metrics on the success, determining the success of the projects and the YSIP being?
No, that
No.
is subcontract. Well, the YSIP evaluation is subcontract out to University of Oregon.
And they do each one of the proposals, so we've got things that show this worked and this one didn't, and this is something we can use in the future.
That's what the subcontract is for, yes.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you so
Michelle?
much.
So, I'm kind of wondering, what, I'm kind of having a hard time wrapping my mind around what the role would be of the eval and data committee, given that, we're getting that information contracted from other resources.
So let's say
Trying to
that
see how, I mean, would you be working with those other resources? Like, I'm just trying to see like how.
Yes.
What would be the purpose?
I'm thinking about, like, let's think about the LGBTQ committee and the equity committee. What is the role of those committees? Like, why do they merit being raised to a standing committee?
That's a great question, Karen. And I think what you're bringing up is the importance of the work that's happening in all these different areas. Maybe this can help answer Ashan's question. Ashan, for example, when I was doing the chair role of the Transition of Care Committee and we did a whole strategic planning session, we really leaned into the idea that we needed some more data and evaluation around what was happening in those different areas around transition of care. And there was discussion of leaning on our data and evaluation committee to see if they could really help gather that for us, because that is their area of specialty. I don't know, Karen, if you want to add more to that, but it may help kind of add that, answer that question about what kind of work it is that your committee is doing.
Well, and
A little
I
bit
think,
more directly.
yeah, so my response to that would be that as committee members, we are aware of what research and evaluation is occurring around the state related to data and evaluation. And so we could turn around and identify whether that was already existing elsewhere or whether we need to make a recommendation to OHA or somebody else that that is something that needs to occur.
Okay, so the data and evaluation committee would work in connection with other committees.
Yes.
And the alliance in regards to getting that data as soon as possible that might be needed.
Right. So anything that is being worked on, if it is not, I think that we would be checking to see if informations were being data driven or if the information being collected about suicide prevention strategy was sort of effectively creating that, collecting that information, or if we have recommendations that there needs to be more done to actually assess whether a strategy is effective or if a decision was made using evidence.
Thank you so much, Karen, for that additional clarification and really helping everyone understand the important work you're doing. Galli, I see you have your hand up as well.
I mean, the way that I see it, just to piggyback on what Karen said, is that
Oh,
You're
yeah,
muted.
I meant to mute myself, but you popped to the top, so I muted you. I am so sorry. I was
I was
not.
like, wait a minute, I didn't do that, and that's weird.
So
That's
sorry.
okay. Stranger things have happened, so that's okay. I was thinking that the data and evaluation committee, their role, I see their role is really supporting the committees and the work of the actual alliance versus the contracted arrangement that Oregon Health Authority has with John's lab and the OHA, like the work that the OHA does to measure effectiveness is specific to the YSIP. So it feels like, and I know Karen, you have offered in the past, like last year, I remember specifically at the quarterly, you offered for the data and evaluation committee to take more of an active role in surveying alliance members and affiliates around, effectiveness of meetings, all of the things. So I do see, based on what you're saying, Karen, I do see that there's a role, and especially as you are the chair, making these remarks. So I think the credibility of this remark is greater for me because you are the chair who is making this. And if you have capacity to make this happen, then yeah.
Yeah,
so
I
much.
think helping and then the other thing that came up during our conversations about whether we should do, like we said we were willing to do like a survey of alliance members to sort of evaluate the work of the alliance. And then it was pointed out to me that University of Oregon already does that survey as part of their contracted work. So which sort of further sort of solidifies the split between what's done by people who are contracted to do the work and the alliance in the role. And Michelle, I saw your comment about the roles and activities of the other committees. And this is what I was thinking too, is like, just seeing the LGBTQ committee and the equity committee raised to like committee level is it's the perfect role of those committees to have ongoing monitoring to ensure that equity is considered and included in everything that everything suicide prevention related in the state, and that LGBTQ priorities are included and considered in everything that is done related to suicide prevention in the state. And I think evaluation role could be to observe and sort of be a bit of a watchdog as to whether evaluation and data are included in the work of suicide prevention in the state, sort of across the state as the alliance.
So what
I love this. And I think all of this amazing conversation is extremely fruitful. And I just want to recognize that we also have some additional subcommittees to discuss. So what I'm wondering is our original motion was data and eval subcommittee changed to an as needed work group. That motion was made by Karen at our last meeting. Karen, are you wanting to revoke that and potentially submit a different motion?
Yes,
can-
I
You can amend your motion. You can just amend it.
could amend it. I'm wondering if I should just rescind it and potentially we
Okay.
could make a sort of a blanket motion around the role of all of these committees to.
Thank you. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think,
I don't think that.
I think you could rescind it. There
Yeah.
doesn't need to be a vote on it. I mean, it's like you
Yeah.
would have to rescind the motion, but the subcommittee already exists. And
Good catch, and good
you know,
catch.
part of what I'm hearing is that there might be the number of times you meet as a committee might shift, but that
Yeah,
still would be a
so I would
committee.
make a motion that we only meet once every 3 months as opposed to once a month.
Right, and I'm not sure that needs to be I mean, doesn't need
In
to
the
be a
bylaws
formal
now.
motion, so that's.
Yeah, I think that just when the subcommittee meets again, which I can meet, you and Sandy can decide that, and then when you all come together, like that would just be the main agenda item, would be just discuss when the committee will meet. So I don't think that it would need a vote or anything.
Okay.
John?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I support Karen's recommendation, and I'm going to be jumping off here in about 6 minutes. So I just wanted to make that public.
Thank you so
Karen.
much, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for bringing that discussion forward. It sounds like we're in agreement that we're resending the original motion that was on the table, and the data and equity, a data and evaluation committee, mixing some things there, is going to continue as is. All right. You want to go ahead and move us forward to the next item, Jen?
Sure. The other committee that was talked about, subcommittee. Yeah, Michelle, it's going to take a while for the language to change. So for the subcommittee that is talking about changing its designation is transitions of care. Historically, transitions of care focused on House Bill 3090 and the just change from higher level of care, stepping down from that. A lot more than that. I'm just trying to simplify it. And the idea that the subcommittee had moving forward was to focus on the opposite of transitions for K-12 students from school to higher level of care and then back, because there's just some issues that happen with that back and forth when kiddos have to go to a higher level of care for however long of a period of time. And after talking with Liz, the current co-chair of that subcommittee, her and Annette were thinking that rather than transitions of care focusing on that the schools committee could start to look at some of that and be able to have that as a priority area for them, meaning that the possibility of transitions of care not existing currently as a subcommittee. If it goes away as a subcommittee, it doesn't mean it can never come back. It just means that right now, kind of like what Annette was saying, and slimming down some of the things that subcommittee wouldn't be meeting for a while. So that's one option from a staff recommendation. If you all think that the subcommittee should continue, then we'll just continue. The subcommittee does have a work plan and action items that we've been kind of moving towards to try and like re-solidify what we're doing. So we would just need to continue that and then work on kind of strengthening our member base. We do have a handful of people who attend regularly that are like super duper amazing and really involved. But just kind of continuing to work on that. Jill Baker.
I wanted to add to the pile of conversation that the 3090 work is one piece of transitions between levels of care. One important piece of work that has been almost 10 years now in the trying to get it off the ground. We have recently gotten Dr. Hathi's attention as the OAJ director on that work again. And we have some energy from our leadership between us and Dr. Hathi. And the reason we do is because we can say the Alliance is asking about it. And so that piece of it, I'd like to consider. And then the other piece I'd love for you to consider is that transitions of care between inpatient and outpatient, emergency departments and schools, mobile crisis and stabilization, all of these pieces are huge areas of focus for the children and family behavioral health team and system of care. And so I'm asking for folks to consider, even if to consider keeping it as a committee, as a subcommittee, knowing that it might need another rebrand and refresh, and that's exhausting. And so if it's time, that's okay.
Well, and that, Gally, I see your hand. I just want to address. So with Jill, with that rebranding, it wouldn't be a refresh. That's literally part of what we have been doing for transitions of care recently, is that work plan is really identifying like what our new mission is now that 3090 isn't the main focus of our work, and like where we want to direct our attention. And if this work from K-12 to higher level of care switches to schools, then that opens up what you were taught us to be able to focus on what you were talking about. And all of those were options for things that the subcommittee is interested in doing and looking at. So those were definitely areas of interest. And we have, I'm so sorry, I know they're two different people, but Rachel Ford or Rachel Howard, one of them.
Rachel Ford is healthcare, so that would make more sense. Rachel Howard is ODHS.
Thank you. Are kind of like doing some of that work too. So like having them on the subcommittee has been fantastic. So we've kind of already been looking at some of that. So it wouldn't take too much work with that refresh. And with the comment in the chat about having it go like data and eval, with Liz being the only co-chair, meeting less frequently would be helpful. So like meeting that every 3 months might be something that could be done as well. Gally.
Jill, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. I have some concerns of transitions of care moving into schools. And because the traction on 3090 has picked up again, and it's picked up again because, and many of you know this, that there was a study that was done by the Joint Commission, and I think the Pew Foundation, and they basically found that across the nation, a very, very, very small percent of hospitals across the nation reported that they were using the evidence-based interventions at discharge related to individuals who presented for suicide-related situations in emergency rooms. And so I approached the Hospital Association several months ago. Our old friend Daniel Meyer, who's been around for a long time, who works directly with our Hospital Association here in Oregon, Julie Majors, who many of you know, who's been a big advocate of this bill, who helped to pass the original bill, and then Megan Crane. We are all meeting, and this meeting has been on the books for a couple months. We're meeting next Thursday, a week from today, to discuss how the Hospital Association and the state can help our Oregon hospitals be more compliant with these evidence-based interventions and recommendations that we know save lives. So I think I would love to see where this goes, especially because Jill is saying that we have Oregon Health Authority's leadership attention again on this. The only way we were able to do all of the work that we have done on 3090 is because Transitions of Care did a lot of work, presented it to Oregon Health Authority, and then Oregon Health Authority made a lot of things happen. But just like Jill's saying, Oregon Health Authority would not have been able to make a lot of those things happen had it not been for the recommendations of Transitions of Care. So according to me, I don't care where the work happens. Like it could happen in schools, it could happen in Transitions of Care, but I think I'm worried about the title schools because it limits, when I think of if a school subcommittee, I think of a certain population. So maybe there needs to be a name change. I don't know. So two things. I don't care where the work lives, but I really feel like we need someone to continue to elevate the 3090 work. And I'm happy to be a part of that. I am a part of that. And maybe if we are going to morph it, we need to have a name change.
And we were thinking too, the original idea was that Transitions of Care in schools would partner together, especially Mary Massey, who sits on both and is an amazing advocate and is the one who brought that idea forward. Her being in both committees was a way to kind of have that partnership for both to be able to work together. And what I'm hearing, Charlotte, I see you. What I'm hearing is
I'd like to
Oh.
add a comment if I can, please. I just want to say, as the prior chair and kind of one that really worked pretty hard to get that committee up and running and kind of having a voice again. And part of that voice was doing the check-ins with OHA to see if there was any additional movement that needed to occur and if this work did need to continue to navigate that way. That original kind of revamp that we had shared with all of you actually did have some initial goals of really looking at that school perspective, but I would agree with you, Gelly, that it doesn't mean that that work can't continue to shift. I would also encourage individuals in the room that if the committee continues and you're doing active work around the 3090, to potentially be able to maybe join the transitions of care committee and bring that knowledge and information to that space so that the committee can have that perspective. Thank you, Jen, for letting me add that.
So what I'm hearing is, I can't do a motion, but what I'm hearing from the conversation so far for the 3 people who have shared is potentially keeping transitions of care as a subcommittee, and then staff meeting with leadership to be able to determine like that meeting frequency and what that could look like to kind of get it continuing. So just is what I'm hearing from conversation. Mary.
I would agree with what Gally and Charlotte are saying. I think the schools piece in the transition of care was just a small piece that we needed help with, you know, in the schools and to bring attention to. But I think that transition of care, especially for, transition of care, I don't know how we can increase management or increase people coming into that, but that committee, I think, is imperative for what we're doing and finding a way to work with hospitals. So if there's any way to keep that and just try to increase membership into that.
So is there, I'm hearing whispers of emotion, but would somebody like to make a motion for potentially from the conversation of keeping it at this-
Clarification on that, Jen, my understanding from before is if the committee already exists, we don't need to make a motion for it to
Yes.
continue.
board? You're right. I'm so sorry. My brain is not.
That's okay.
I
You don't have to
know.
apologize.
I
I'm
think-
all wrapped up in trying to figure it out too, but I was just like, okay, did I have that right from the last
No,
one?
you're
So
right.
Well,
Sweet.
yeah.
maybe what we could do is we could put as a tickler in like 6 months to come back to revisit
Yeah.
the conversation about the utility of the transitions of care. I totally agree that, you know, if there's not a really strong sense of what people are trying to achieve, that maybe the membership isn't gonna thrive as much. So I wonder if I think, Charlotte, to your point, when you were pairing it and you were doing a great job, you know, in the last year, and it's new information for us to chew on around how to do this work differently and smarter. And so I think, you know, the combination of working with the Hospital Association and, you know, Julie Majors, who's a big fan of this work, and many of you have asked, you know, about making sure that work comes, like, I'm meeting with those folks with primarily with my Alliance hat on and a little bit of my Clackamas hat on. But I will be bringing that information back to the Alliance. So that information will certainly be funneled in to the Alliance so we can do something about it.
And we have been able to have relationships with the Hospital Association too. So that's been increasing. Okay, cool. So I will, as staff to that committee, I'll reach out to Liz, talk with her about details for that, and then we can share the plan that we have for the committee too with the executives. That way you can all see what we've done so far and what our future ideas are. Okay. So
Jen, will you on this document put the word continue by data and eval now with the same green thing, and put the word continue by transitions of care, just so that it's.
Correct.
So it's
And we
really,
can put
and
that,
then-
but what I would like to do is go ahead and move us forward to the equity conversation because we do need enough individuals to vote. Sorry, Annette, I think we unmuted at the same time. Did you have a different
no,
plan?
that's just fine, Charlotte.
So
Okay.
we have three additional committees. So there's I'm just going to lay out what the things are for each of them, and then we can go one by one just to give an overview, and then individual. So equity was previously an advisory group to the Alliance in its previous structure. The suggestion is to make that a standing subcommittee for the Alliance moving forward. The LGBTQ plus was also an advisory group for the previous Alliance structure, and the recommendation is also that that become a standing subcommittee moving forward.
I think it's, I
And-
think it's that for discussion. I at least don't have a
Yeah.
recommendation one way or another about that.
Okay, so the
Can we keep it to one at a time, Jen? Can we go with the equity first? So it's just kind of everyone has the ability to,
yeah, I was just gonna do it
Is that okay?
and then go into that. for
okay,
sure.
perfect, sorry.
No, equity, go ahead. What do you all think about that? What do you all think about equity becoming a standing committee?
Will someone just briefly share with us what the difference would be? So the difference would be,
That we would have, if you're a standing committee, one of your chairs serves on the executive.
okay,
Is the biggest difference, and you can forward recommendations to the executive.
okay.
Um,
Public meeting law
public meeting law applies to, yes.
to either. And if I remember correctly, Jill, this was a recommendation from DOJ, yes?
Well, so this is our workaround recommendation
Okay.
based on other things from DOJ, that OHA and AOCMHP, aside from the Alliance, plan to continue to support both financially and with staff time affinity spaces for the LGBTQ group and for the BIPOC caucus and the white accountability learning community. And that this would be a official advisory committee with public meeting laws, that those other affinity spaces would still receive support, but would not be in, could provide some more confidentiality, essentially.
Awesome. And I know that previously we were struggling with making sure that there was a conduit of information between the equity advisory group and what was the executive committee at the time. And Michelle was gracious enough to join the executive subcommittee as that conduit to make sure information was shared back and forth.
I also like this solution because it gives us the seat on the executive for a super important group.
I'd like to make a motion that the equity moves from what is now an advisory committee to a standing subcommittee of the Alliance.
Thank you, Gally. Do we have a second on that? Do we continue to have enough voting members in this space? Has anyone done a count for us?
I think so.
So typically what happens is once you've reached quorum, as long as nobody asks if you still have quorum, you're okay. If it's pointed out that you've lost quorum, then you have a problem.
And I don't think it's been pointed out that we lost it yet. It just was asking who the voting members are in this space. So
Also,
nobody's
I think we still have it. I think we still have 6. We're good.
cool. So
Joined here.
so yeah, we have the motion from Gally to do that. Is there a second?
I'll go ahead and
Yes.
second that one.
Okay,
Justin?
Sorry, Kelly can take it.
Okay.
and then discuss votes in the chat or discussion, or I feel like we've had discussion, but votes in the okay, I think that passes. Sweet. Okay, LGBTQ plus. Same situation as equity. Previously, advisory group wants to become standing subcommittee and would be the same things that we talked about for the equity. So like would have a spot on the executive and all of that kind of stuff.
Is, may I make a comment here? Is Sisha still here in the room? I don't know if Sisha's still here.
Sure am.
Hi, Sisha. I just want to clarify, we didn't ask to become a subcommittee. Sisha, I don't know what your feeling is about that. I think that we were looking for guidance from this group about whether this is something that should get elevated as a committee or not, or if just being connected to a affinity group is feels like enough. And Sish, I don't know if you have a, Sish has been co-leading our LGBTQ work to date. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. I would say if we have the opportunity to become a committee, I think it makes sense. I think it can solidify a lot of the work we've been doing, and we've been pretty active and productive as a group.
Okay. Yeah, I think our concern at one point was some of this around safety and space. And I think as we've talked about it further as a group, we've realized we can be a public meeting. We are ready to we think these conversations are really important to have.
That sums it up pretty much exactly. Yeah, I think safety was the thing we were thinking about. But as talking it through, it seemed like a good move to make.
Oh, Michelle put in the chat, is there a way to provide an affinity space similar to BIPOC and WALK? And those affinity spaces are going to live under AOCMHP. Is that still correct? I see Jill nodding. Okay, so I guess that's another area for discussion, is becoming a standing subcommittee, or if it were to become an affinity space like the BIPOC and WALK, then it would not have to follow those public meeting laws and would be able to still have that safety and privacy and stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the questions we originally had on the agenda, even to propose as a potential option. So thank you so much, Michelle, for bringing that to light and letting everyone consider what those different potential options could be.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I don't know what the difference, like what would having a committee allow the group to do versus affinity group?
Yeah, I'll just say there's also, I just want to say there's a staff capacity issue around how many different things we're staffing. I think to start with, we should, like, if we're going to if people vote to turn this into a subcommittee, that we should really focus on strengthening and getting the subcommittee moving forward.
Can you clarify? I think, Sisha, what I was hearing is you wanted to know what the difference was between what it looked like to be an affinity space versus a committee. Can someone provide that information clearly for all of us, please?
I'm happy to.
Thank you, Jill.
The affinity space would not follow public meeting laws, wouldn't have notes taken, wouldn't be public meetings, would be run by AOCMHP in a contract between AOCMHP and OHA. The advisory, if it's an advisory committee or a subcommittee, it is subject to public meeting laws. Notes will be taken. Anyone can attend, and it would be focused on advisory work rather than social support or other affinity space purposes.
Is it
Thank
possible
you.
for a space to be an affinity space to begin with, and then if it gains enough, I don't know, folks that are there consistently to become a
Yeah, we just have to run it by the executive. We have a process written out for that. So it could totally start that way. And then if y'all are just like, this is going great, let's do this, we could do that.
Yeah, I think it makes sense then to be an affinity. I think we have a lot of transitions of people in and out, even though we're continuing to do work. So I think it would make sense to be an affinity and then have a possibility in the future to be a subcommittee.
Thank you so much for bringing your voice forward and really your awareness of what's happening with all of that work. And just want to reiterate some of the comments coming through about all of the amazing work that has been accomplished. Jill, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to name that makes me a little nervous to not have a standing advisory, a place for us to ask for work to be done rather than support, because of the issue, because of the topic, and because it's so prevalent in suicide prevention, that affinity group wouldn't make recommendations or provide recommendations to OHA. It's not a workaround of public meeting laws. It can't be viewed that way. It's an affinity group for that purpose of it. And so even if it's an ad hoc work group and not a standing committee, that would be my request. That even if that like the messaging group, that there's a group of people that have said they're interested in doing the work of recommending policy changes, rather than an affinity space.
But the work groups would still fall under public meeting laws, right? So like this one for the messaging group, we don't want that alliance. We want AOCMHP connected, so like not alliance. So like if the worry is around the public meeting space, the work group would still have to follow those, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it would mean that a full standing subcommittee would have to meet once every 3 months, would have a seat on the executive committee. A work group would meet as needed, so it'd have and wouldn't hold official votes, but could make recommendations back to a committee, including the executive committee. And in the affinity space is not a part of the alliance. That is a part of AOCMHP. And that is because the purpose of it is social support and affinity space, not public advocacy.
Then hearing all of that, to me, it makes sense to at least be a work group then, because I think that there does need to be a space for work to be done around that within the alliance. So I don't think I understood at first. It could be a work group or a subcommittee. Is that accurate? Yeah.
And there will be an affinity space offered.
Yeah.
That's not that's separate from the alliance.
Could it be a work group within the equity subcommittee?
Annette, do you have thoughts based on our previous meetings?
I think, honestly, I think we're gonna have to I guess I'm open to it being a committee or a work group. And I think it's just I'm thinking about who's member and who's moved off. There's 3 active members right now, and we'll have to do an outreach again. Because we had a whole group of active members who've moved on in their lives for different reasons.
Okay, is anyone interested in making a motion that the LGBTQ plus will change to a work group which follows public meeting laws?
I wonder, since it sounds like there would need to be rebuilding of that group, if and I don't know if current members would be more a part of the equity subcommittee, you'd still be able to have an affinity group, and then when your members grow, an outreach could become turned into a work group under the equity committee subcommittee.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that proposing it to be a work group of the equity committee for the time being. And we could always, as we form and as interest moves forward, if we go, there's so much that this needs to be a full standing committee, then we could come back to the executive and ask that.
Does that need to be, oh, sorry. Did you say that makes sense, Sisha? Okay. Does that need to be, just everyone help me out here. Does that need to be an actual motion, or is that something that can occur without a motion?
I believe that could occur without a motion, that we could make the LGBTQ be part of the work group of equity. Especially since we have leadership from equity here in the room hearing that, and leadership from LGBTQ here in the room hearing all that.
Perfect. Okay. Great discussion. Thank you all for digging through that and really trying to be thoughtful about it. I think that's important, and seeing what the best way would be to move that work forward. And I think Jen, oh, go ahead, Annette.
I just say, I have to appreciate that there's some of these things where where we're so close to it that sometimes it gets hard for us to see the forest for the trees. And so anyhow, I appreciate the group thinking.
I think, to my understanding, Jen, is we don't need a motion for that, is what was just confirmed.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Annette, for sharing that. And I think we have one last committee to talk about. Jen, do you want to guide us with that?
Yeah, the last one is just the work group. So we've had a coalition messaging work group that was meeting, and then the coalition grants came out, stopped meeting, and then at the suicide prevention conference, members are like, we want this group again. So we've been meeting again. The goal of the coalition messaging group is that people from regional suicide prevention coalitions across the state, as well as other interested partners, meet once a month to have shared messaging. We've started to do outreach to other sectors, including overdose prevention, gambling prevention, we want all the prevention efforts to come together because they're all connected. And we were previously an alliance work group, but we want the leadership from that group would like us to move under AOCMHP as a work group for them who employ the folks who employ Annette and I. And part of that hope too is that by moving to an AOCMHP work group, we would be able to connect with the community mental health programs, the CMHPs, which is who AOCMHP connects with all of the letters. So that is that proposal is that we wouldn't be an alliance work group, which means we would not have to follow public meeting laws, and we would be able to continue to meet on a monthly basis. And there's a lot of engagement, like this document says. We have a lot of folks who are coming together from across the state.
Can I just clarify, Jen, is it a work group or is it a current subcommittee that we would need to be asking to change down?
It was just a work group. We never became a subcommittee. It was just, yeah, a work group for the alliance.
So this doesn't necessarily need a vote. It just sounds like we need discussion around what it's going to look like moving forward.
Yeah, or if folks have any concerns about it. Jill.
I don't have any concerns. I do wonder if, because if it's a work group, it can't make any recommendations or any official decisions. And I wonder if that will feel frustrating.
That doesn't really seem, so far, can't speak for the future, but so far that hasn't really been a goal or a hope for that subcommittee. It's especially because the coalitions tend to be lifespan, and right now Alliance is really that youth focus. So I don't think that will be an issue, but if it ever does become an issue, we can for sure come to the executive and share that. But yeah, as of right now, there hasn't been a desire or a request around recommendations. It's really just been around improving our communication and messaging across the state. But that's a really good point to bring up.
Any questions, comments that you want to share around that ask? Other than what Jill has already shared. I see some thumbs up happening. Okay, lots of thumbs up, Jen. So it sounds like no one has anything to oppose with that and that you can move forward. We need a motion to adopt this slate of subcommittee. Can you say more, Jill? I thought we didn't need a motion since it would be held under AOCMHP.
So the whole slate, what we have listed, what all of those decisions we just made.
Oh, thank you.
At the
That's what I
quarterly
meant, sorry.
meeting, we'll be saying, here's the committees, subcommittees.
Okay. Oh, you're going to test my memory, or I guess I can make the screen big enough to see. Just for the record, okay, originally we were going to do a 2-hour meeting. I begged for an hour and a half today, and I think we actually, maybe not ending early, but maybe we can end on time. Okay. I'll even take 30 seconds just so I can, hold hope. So it looks like you all have done amazing. Thank you for digging through all this with us. Thank you, Jen, for scrolling so I can read here. So if anyone is interested in making a motion to adopt the slate that's in front of us right now of subcommittees that we just agreed on. So the Transition of Care Committee will continue as is, even though that wasn't a vote. We're remaining where that is. Equity was voted in as a subcommittee. LGBTQ will be working in the realm of the equity work. and can potentially be changed in the future as they continue to grow their team. And Jen's request around the work group that was created for advertising. Is that correct, Jen? Sorry.
Yeah, that's
Promotion.
okay. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you. I just brain farted.
You're fine.
So that you have it all on the screen. Does anyone have a motion to go ahead and approve this slate?
Hi, Charlotte, this is
Yes.
Don. I move that we approve this slate.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Do we have a second?
I second.
Who's that?
Thank you so much, Angela. Let's go ahead and place our vote. Well, is there any further discussion? I know we did a lot, but I thought I'll open it up. Oh, people are already voting. Let's vote.
And here's the voting folks on the screen again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. That passes. Motion passes.
Motion passes. And then it looks like, did you have an announcement, Jen?
Oh yeah, it's nothing serious. It's just a personal thing. So this is my last executive for the rest of the year. So I just I'm gonna have a baby in 2 weeks, and so I just wanted to let you all know that I will be gone, and to not gone, but just have a great rest of your year, because this will be the last time that I'll see folks. I'll be at the quarterly online unless he decides to come early, which would be rude. But yeah, that'll be, so just thank you all so much, and I hope you all have a great rest of your year.
I've
Thank
got,
you so much.
I've got,
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jen. And we always appreciate everything that you put into these meetings, and you will be significantly missed. And also we will hold space for you really enjoying time with that new baby. Did you have
Yes.
something to say, Gordon?
a question. It's been a long meeting for my mind. Did we vote to accept the bylaws as corrected to present to the Alliance on the 27th? Did we actually take a vote?
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Yep.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
that passed. Yep.
Glad. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, amazing souls. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. Tons of things accomplished in the last couple of meetings. Really appreciate all of your motivation for our work. Make all of the great we are doing in our state, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday. I keep having to remember what day of the week it is. I think it's Thursday, and move on into your amazing weekend. See you later.